So I thought I'd make another segment today where I would just basically talk about one of the stories that's been going around quite a bit, and that's the right-wing boycotts that have been happening in the U.S. right now. So I'd like to go back to this tweet from James Lindsay back in around. Let's see, this is retweet I think, but he made this tweet earlier on in 2023. Anyhow, basically in this tweet he's basically arguing that there's going to be a media narrative that's going to be centered around the LGBTQ community in the US. It's going to be a huge narrative arc for the summer. So we're just going to click on some of these images that he presents from The Economist. There's this article titled "The Last Drag Queens of Tennessee," referring to the Tennessee legislation that got passed to try and stop what is it, LGBTQ stuff going on in schoolrooms and libraries and things like that. So that's, oh, there we go. Next, Cookeville, Tennessee. A climate of fear is forcing some gay bars to close their doors. From The Economist again. BS. Economist again. In January, protests against a drag brunch at a local bar drew members of white supremacist groups. One protester waved a Nazi flag. This is exhausting. From The Economist again, I bet. Oh, yep, it is. Oh, this is a nice image there. Wendy Williams, owner of Temptation, an LGBTQ bar which regularly hosts drag performances, has decided to close her business amid the tension. Let's see. Is this person also in Tennessee? Probably. In any case, I think that kind of helps to make the point. This guy, James Lindsay, he's a pretty intellectual kind of guy. I think he's smart. He made a prediction earlier in the year that this was going to be part of a narrative arc for the summer. And I think these boycotts kind of exemplify what's going on. Although it's significant pushback that this narrative arc I don't think was really expecting. So let's move on to the next tweet I had pulled up, the redheaded libertarian. I kind of wanted to lay some foundation work as to why it is that, I mean, if anyone out there is kind of wondering how it is that all of this stuff happened, like not recently, but like over the years. I mean, imagine going back like 20, 30 years, like the idea of so many people being pro-homosexual, like for those of you who are older than me, perhaps you would understand that it's maybe at one point in time it would have been a lot less fathomable. I know that the older people I talk to would have been like, this is never what we expected. For me personally, it's hard. I mean, I can imagine a world like that because again, it's just people you kind of deal with, I guess. But ugh, to distill it down to a point, it seems as though throughout my lifetime I've seen the acceptance or tolerance or the pushing of this lifestyle expand exponentially as time has gone on. I mean, I remember when I was younger, it seemed as though it was far less common, but it seems to have exploded lately. Anyhow, I thought this tweet from the redheaded libertarian was pretty good. I think it kind of outlines as to why it is that you've seen so much of this stuff. I mean, why is it that 30 years ago you wouldn't see all the rainbow logos on corporate logos? I mean, the rainbow style logo. Why is it that it always pops up in June for the last few years, and why is it that doesn't happen as often? I mean, yeah, you could point back to Obama, who basically made June LGBTQ month, but why all the DEI and woke initiatives? Well, let's read what she has to say. So, why is everything gay? Buckle up, we're going down this gay rabbit hole. The CEI, Corporate Equality Index, is a woke credit score that judges companies based on how many woke issues they are pushing. Number 1, what is woke? A word co-opted from the black community by gender activists that was infected with neo-Marxism. 2, who made up and gives the score? From my understanding, the Human Rights Campaign sends lobbyists to companies and gives them a list of demands, and if they don't comply with these demands, the woke investors put pressure on the boards, activists are mobilized, advertising campaigns are shut down, and anyone who continues to do business with the poorly scored company will also be penalized. And who is funding the HRC? The Open Society Foundation. Who runs the Open Society Foundation? Definitely don't Google that. Essentially, if you don't get a good score, the lizard god king of the world doesn't let your business exist. This fake score is everywhere and is controlling everyone and everything with threats and coercion. This despotic rot is the result of a compromised country. Now, I haven't really done the time to verify all of this, but, it's stuff that does make sense. So from the screenshots from influencewatch.org, we can see that the Soros Charitable Foundation and Planned Parenthood Federation of America are the main people who donate to the HRC. And we also have other groups like the National Education Association, labor unions, United Food and Commercial Workers. I mean, these are interest groups that are involved with it. But yeah, Soros Fund, Planned Parenthood, Those are the main donors, right? Anyhow, so that's a bit of an explanation as to why it is that you've seen the explosion of LGBTQ ideology, woke ideology, whatever you want to call it, being pushed in general society. And here's an article from Axios basically talking about, like, I mean, it kind of highlights the effects of what all that has been. So when you look at the amount of people who identify as the alphabet community, from traditionalists, which is basically pre-World War II, and then you have the baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. You can see that the numbers gradually rise. With traditionalists, it's like 0.8%. Go figure, back then, times were different. But you can see, like, as the ideology has gradually become more accepted, or at least this lifestyle has become more accepted in the US, it has grown tremendously. And then you see a massive jump with millennials and Gen Z. In fact, when you look at this, it almost looks like it's kind of exponential, because you essentially have it like less than 1, then you have it grow to 2.5, then it goes to 4.2, then it more than doubles to 10.5, then that doubles to 20.8%. Gen Z, my generation. Some massive jumps. And for those of you who've been watching political content for a while, you've probably noticed this already. I mean, I've certainly noticed it. It seems as though when you interact with older people, they're like, definitely they exhibit that more traditional lifestyle. But when you interact with younger people and you look around, you see that they definitely have that more, I don't know, they definitely choose what you can call an alternative lifestyle, or a lifestyle that's not traditional. I mean, these people practically wear some of their lifestyles on their sleeve, where you could just look at their clothing and their hair and you can tell, you are definitely of this kind of culture, right? Anyhow, that's just kind of the effect of when you. I mean, obviously, Axios is more of a left wing outlet, and they would argue that, well, you're actually tolerating them more, so therefore more people coming out. And I find that hard to believe. I mean, human beings by nature, right? We're very slow to reproduce as a species. So therefore, this kind of acceptance of this kind of behavior, I mean, it always served. I'm not putting the idea very correctly. But the basic idea is that for human beings, it doesn't, for no species does homosexual behavior make any sense. I mean, granted, there are instances in which you record, like, animals are animals. But humans, it's very hard for humans to even reproduce. I mean, it doesn't make sense from any kind of evolutionary standpoint as to why this behavior would kind of be indulged, right? I don't know. I guess that's kind of making my point. Or that's the point I kind of want to make. Anyhow, moving on to the next tweet I have. So yeah, now we're gonna get to the stuff that's actually happening right now. So you saw the Bud Light boycott, you saw the Target boycott. Now it looks like Chick-fil-A might be the next corporation that's in the crosshairs of these boycott efforts. Right. So what we have here is a tweet from Tim Pool, where it's basically a screenshot of it's a screenshot from Chick-fil-A's website. So Chick-fil-A restaurants have long been recognized as a place where people know they will be treated well. Let's skip over that. Basically, they're announcing their new VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Eric McReynolds. Apparently, this guy has worked for the corporation since 2007, but now they're creating essentially a new position where DEI, or woke policy, will be enforced throughout the company. And, I don't think that'll work out very well for Chick-fil-A. I mean, they've pandered to the whole Christian idea for a while. I mean, maybe not necessarily pandered, but those are the values they've definitely tried to espouse. I mean, they close their stores on Sundays because that's when the Christian Sabbath is supposed to be, right? And anyhow, I brought up some articles to kind of like reinforce what my prediction is going to be. My prediction is, if the boycott actually takes hold, Chick-fil-A is going to get a huge sucker punch in terms of their revenue. They will feel an actual boycott. And past right-wing boycotts haven't really been that effective until you get to Bud Light. Let's see, I have some articles pulled up on Bud Light. Anheuser-Busch has lost a staggering $15.7 billion in value since Bud Light controversy began, as rivals add $3.2 billion to their value, and experts warn of beer shortage. I mean, it's so bad that Bud Light is essentially buying back expired beer. Let's see, let's do Control F. Expired. Show it to me. Yeah. Oh, this thing is frozen. How annoying. Go away. Switch over there, switch back. I don't know why it doesn't want to cooperate with me today. Anyhow, let's go over here. The Google search I had used to find some information. How much money has Bud Light lost? Well, 15.7 billion apparently to this Daily Mail article. And I've seen some other articles that have said that their sales are down between 25 to 30%. Some say I've seen some that say 29.5%, some that have said 25%. I mean, there are probably different metrics based off of how you count it, but the point is a quarter to a third of Bud Light's revenue is down, and Bud Light is a huge portion of Anheuser-Busch. This is devastating. And then there's a whole issue of how long can Bud Light afford to keep buying back expired beer? I mean, that's not exactly a long-term business plan. It's an act of desperation to save your public image, but because people are taking pictures of all the unsold Bud Light in random stores, and they're also taking pictures of, well, not only that, but if companies can't sell Bud Light, right? Then why on earth would they keep buying it? Someone has to buy it, so I guess Bud Light's buying it back in order to incentivize these companies to buy it again. It is a market situation that does not make sense unless you account for the fact that Bud Light is getting reamed, literally, in terms of their brand. Right? People are pissed because Bud Light refused to apologize, and they waded into the political/cultural war, and well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Right? How can I be surprised? Let's look at how much money has Target lost. Since the backlash, Target's market value has fallen $12 billion to $61.7 billion as of Tuesday's closing price. Mid-month, the market value was over $74 billion. So, lost $12 billion. That's a lot of money, right? These boycotts are actually really effective because I've seen boycotts come and go in the past, right? I like to read the news. I like to keep track of what's going on. Past boycotts, meh, it's more like a virtue signal or expression of that you're upset. This is actually doing some damage. I mean, heck, if Bud Light could get ruined if they don't find some sort of an actual solution in order to move their product. I mean, they've already lost their number one spot as the top beer in America. Let's do a quick Google search. Bud Light no longer top. Oh, look at that. It's auto-filled for me. Bud Light sales dropped 25.7%, risk losing number one spot in the U.S. Yeah, New York Post. That's it right there. I mean, to no longer be the number one brand, that's a cultural value that's hard to win back. And this thing has gone on so long that why would people ever come? I mean, it's the longer you delay apologizing, the less likely people are to come back to your brand. And it's not like that people had that much brand loyalty to a cheap beer in the first place. Not like that I'm a beer connoisseur or anything, but it's not that great of a beer. So you have a okay to not so good product. People aren't exactly going to come back. They could go somewhere else for their beer for that, and it's also going to be cheap and maybe better. Anyhow, moving on. Yeah. So why? Oh, yeah, this is an article basically explains what I've already said about the Chick-fil-A guy. They opened up the new office. People are upset. But here's some research I did to kind of predict why it is that I think they're not going to do very well. So I just did a simple Google search, Chick-fil-A popularity by political affiliation. So let's run through the articles. The Atlantic, going back to 2012. Republicans eat Chick-fil-A, Democrats eat Boston Market. So that's some important data right there. It's the right wing / Republicans who would be interested in boycotting Chick-fil-A in the first place, right? So that's a problem. If your main target demographic are the ones who are boycotting you, then you're already in deep trouble, we'll say that. From the Washington Examiner, why liberals target Chick-fil-A. So basically this article goes on to say that, Chick-fil-A has basically been on the right wing. They try to endear themselves to right-wingers very often. It prides itself on its chicken signature sandwich. Let's see, where is it? The controversies began over donations from Kathy's charitable endeavor, the Wind Shape Foundation, which poured money into organizations that espouse a traditional family model and oppose gay marriage. So, yeah, again, LGBTQ issues, or that controversy, front and center in what this whole boycott agenda is about, right? It's a political issue, it's a cultural issue, and the boycotts are over whether or not you are outright, I guess you could say, pushing this on the general public. And we already see what the effect of that is. You're seeing more and more young people who are gradually being persuaded to adopt that lifestyle. And you can dig into the details as to which young people are doing it more often than others, but fact of the matter remains, it is expanding. What's the natural effect of that? Well, when you look at the US birth rate, it's already pretty low, and that's a problem for any society where you need to have at least a minimum of two people produced from. You need to have two kids in your lifetime to maintain population, right? Because there two people are required to make a child, and then you need two people to replace those two people who will eventually grow old and die. US birth rate is not even at 2. What is it? Let's look at the US birth rate. 1.6. Yeah, it's not exactly good, but there are countries that have it worse, but that's a problem if you're trying to maintain your society. Natural result, you will have a shrinking population, you have more old people that you have to take care of. Things will only gradually get worse. Be fun to see what happens to Social Security if not enough young people can pay into the program to pay for all the old people. All right, moving on from the Washington Examiner. We got the message already. This was a 2021 article from The Guardian. Chick-fil-A faces right-wing backlash after cutting ties to Christian groups. So basically, Chick-fil-A stopped donating to Christian groups that oppose same-sex marriage. They started donating to groups like the SPLC. They started donating to LGBTQ plus groups, abortion rights groups. I mean, Chick-fil-A doesn't have any right to conservative money. If conservatives don't like it for any reason, they don't have to spend money there. Plain and simple. Problem is, the conservatives could never really organize any effective boycott until Bud Light. And now the momentum is starting to put Chick-fil-A in the crosshairs. Look, if I were at Chick-fil-A, the easiest solution right now, apologize and suck up really fast. Again, you're betting on whether or not the boycott will actually take hold. If it doesn't take hold, you're safe. But this is actually like, these boycotts are getting momentum. They have legs. Companies are losing billions of dollars. I mean, Bud Light's been going on for like 2 months now. They keep losing money. Sales keep going down. As football season keeps getting closer, you're going to want those beer sales at the stadiums, right? What happens when stadiums can't sell Bud Light anymore? That's going to look really ugly. Only going to keep getting worse. Another article from Civic Science. Politics are beginning to weigh on Chick-fil-A. This article is a bit more recent. Chink in the armor. After years of steady gains, something strange started to happen. Chick-fil-A earlier this year, for the first time since Civic Science began tracking the brand, its favorability fell 2 points in quarter 2 of 2019. To make matters worse, the number fell another 2 points in Q3. Where was the main point of this article? Why now? What does it mean? I don't know. I think I've already made my point already. Chick-fil-A is kind of screwed if this boycott actually takes effect. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that the right has finally managed to mount some effective boycotts. It's probably the most effective thing they could ever do in the culture war is basically voting with their dollars. I mean, they've been saying vote for your dollar for years. I can't exactly explain why it's working now as opposed to before. But I do think people are gradually getting more and more fed up as this stuff keeps getting pushed on them and their kids. And kids are definitely the target of this stuff. I mean, there is literally a war going on over youth in the country. I mean, you see it with when Florida passes bills that basically prevent teachers from talking about sexualized subjects, right? Youth are at the front center of this because the youth will determine the next generation, the next culture, or what the culture will be. And then I've done previous videos where I've talked about, migration patterns in the U.S. and how people move to states where their ideology is supported. This will only further entrench political worldview, right? Anyhow, that's about all I have for this video. There's some other articles pulled up, but I only have so much time in the day. And they're not really on the same subject. I'd like to talk about them too. I have trouble as it is finding the right topic to talk about. But, you talk about what you can with the time that you have. So anyhow, if you made it this far, thanks for listening. This is just my passion project, I guess you can say. I like talking about the news. I like talking about what's going on. Yeah. Consider leaving a comment, like, and subscribe. I really appreciate it because, again, this is just... I like to see people that are willing to engage with my 10, 20, 30 minute conversations with myself about what's essentially happening in the world. So, I enjoy doing it myself. It's a bit more fun when I see people who have, like, their own 2 cents to contribute. So anyhow, thanks. Have a good one and stay safe. Bye.